So for those of you that are not sure you're in the right spot, this is question time, 10th of Feb 2021. We do this session every single Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. So if you're unsure if this is live, there is the paper. Yeah, it's a financial review. It's boring, but this is why we do it live, so that we can bring you the latest and answer all those questions that you've got. For those of you that haven't joined this before, my name is James Maitland. I'll be your host, and I'll introduce you to everyone on the panel shortly. We really encourage you to get involved, ask as many questions as you can, and that makes for the best session. If you're unsure as to what Salvo does, we do a lot of things. However, ultimately, I can sum it up as one thing. We help create homes for people. So whether that is helping you buy a new home, building a home, or helping investors to manage and find themselves a tenant, even right down to the other end of the spectrum where you may be looking for your first rental property. So if that sounds like you are in the right place, and I think you should get a real kick out of today. So I thought we'd just run through some of the themes that we've seen over the last 7 days. Lucas, I think, is going to chat to us about FOMO. I don't know exactly what it means. My kids laughed at me when I asked them and wouldn't tell me, so he's going to tell us what it means and what he's seen. We're going to talk about, should you be retaining your first property? House price bubbles. We've heard a lot from the general media about this, and let's see what the Reserve Bank of Australia is thinking. Obviously, start of the month, CoreLogic puts out the latest housing stats. Looks pretty exciting to me, but I think we'll run through that later. And of course, the eternal debate that seems to be raging at the moment, all about should you be moving to regional Australia? I personally love the beaches. I love the cities. I think you'd be crazy, but we're going to have a chat about what that means and whether that makes sense to anyone. As always, we're running through a few key stats just to wrap up what's happened for everyone out there. Auction clearance rates, great statistics, gives you a real feel as to what's happening in the market. Whilst every area is different, I really like to get this as a good gauge. So 83.8% was the weighted average across Australia last weekend. Fantastic result. I can't remember when I've last seen numbers so high in the 80s. And you can also see looking there that was not from a low number of auctions. So going to the major capitals, Sydney was just under 90%. Absolutely astounding result there from almost 450 auctions. And Melbourne was just under 81%. So both the two main capitals, huge weekends and great results. We've been bringing this up for the last couple of weeks. So realestate.com, the largest real estate listings portal here in Australia, puts out some great stats. These are what we call leading indicators. They're very much based on what realestate.com sees happening on their website, and gives a bit of an indicator into what they believe is the intent of people on their site. So that is, are they real buyers? Are they engaged? And they measure that by certain actions and activities that they take. Last week saw a fairly significant rise nationally, up by just over 7%. And you can see from the graph there on the left, we are now, based on the index that they've been maintaining for the last couple of years, that's now at the highest intent that they've seen on their website for a while. Drilling down into Victoria, we're all based here in Victoria. Victoria followed very much suit, very, very strong. And I think we've talked about this a bit. Victoria is seeing a really, really strong period right now, given that for most of last year, it was shut out while the rest of the country was still going. Christmas holidays always sees that dip, if you're wondering what that is. They are now well and truly behind us, so we expect it only to be on the up from here. Rental, those of you that are interested about rental, because maybe you are renting or you're an investor, rental always surges over Christmas, the pure opposite to buying, as people sort of think I should find a new home. Perhaps maybe it's first time people looking to move out of home after one too many Christmases with their parents. I know Lucas said he moved out of home at 17 because he was quick to get away, and he came back at age 17 again because he missed his mum washing his underpants. But that always is a surge. Now, we did actually see a rise last week of 6%. I've got here the stats written down, but those graphs appear to be, perhaps they're still last week's graphs. So we did see a tick up. And the most notable thing that the rental demand across the country and also in Victoria is 25% higher than it was this time last year. That could be a very, very interesting indication, given that we don't have the level of students we typically would be seeing around this time of year. So it may actually see that things are on the way up for investors and rents in particular. So that's it with the early intro as to the latest stats from around the country. Let's get stuck into it. Before I allow everyone to start asking questions, I want to ask you a question. Long-time listeners will know this very, very well. I want to know, what do you believe is going to win the day, information or knowledge? Lucas, can we give everyone the answer? Don't put them through misery. What's the right answer?
Knowledge.
Very good. So if we unpack that, information is organised data about something. Knowledge, on the other hand, is an understanding either through education or experience. So, the knowledge is turning that information into something useful. Now, we're going to talk a lot today, and we always talk with all of our customers and investors and so forth about having actionable knowledge. And that is very much being able to take in the information that's thrown at us every day, understand what it means, turn it into knowledge, and importantly, be able to take action from that. So whether that action be inaction, as in not doing a particular thing, or actually doing something, or setting yourself the reminder to do something in the future based off that, that is where the skill comes in. That's what we personally love doing here, and we love helping people with it. But you're going to hear me mention actionable knowledge a lot today. One of the reasons why it is very hard to achieve is that there is so much information out there today, and a fairly vast amount of that information is created by people that have got very little experience or limited qualifications in the field that they're talking about. I think it's fairly prevalent now with social media that anyone can jump on and give their opinions, and often what is shared or discussed the most is not from the experienced professionals, but those that have large social media followings. So those of you that want to know how can you do this yourself, I'm happy to hang around at the end and give you a technique. If you've been here before, you would have heard it. It's called the cube technique. But what I can suggest to you is that the easiest thing to do and the biggest shortcut that you can ever have is to join us every Wednesday here at 2:30 Melbourne time, and we will answer any questions you've got. You can leverage all of our experience. So I've been chastising everyone now for, I think I was stuffing around with technical difficulties for at least a minute or two, but I've got to have been talking for at least 7 or 8 minutes. So who am I? For those of you that just joined, my name is James Maitland. I'm the General Manager here at Salvo, and I've helped people like you create more than 11,500 homes. On the panel, we're joined by Greg Arbeck, Jack Jan, and Lucas Karras. So these guys will be answering all of your questions. I'll be moderating and firing the questions at them. If you don't know how to use Zoom, then you're probably not on this call because you wouldn't be here. There's 2 methods to ask questions. It appears to us over the last year of doing this, everybody loves to write their questions in the Q&A. So get into it, get stuck into it. I will be writing as many answers as I can to you guys and bringing the questions to the panel. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let's get stuck into it. All right, panel, welcome. Everyone can hear okay. Jack, you've got us? Great. All right, so I am going to run through and start reading. I can see we've got a huge attendee group today. Plenty of questions coming in. I can see them dinging all the time. First up, Lucas, I mentioned you were going to tell us, what is FOMO?
FOMO is fear of missing out.
All right, and make me feel better. You didn't know that. You had to ask your daughter, didn't you?
100% right.
All right. Now, Greg, I'm sure you knew that. You're down with the kids of today and you probably knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, I just said sup. and they told me. You know, so.
Of course you did. Of course you did. All right. So there's a question here just talking about, prices and interest rates. So what's going on at the moment, and what does that mean for people, and what can they expect?
Look, with a cash rate, James, of 0.1%, and it's going to stay like that for at least the next 3 years, as we've been told, as well as extension of bond buying program by another $100 billion, sort of created a huge interest for buying property. And everybody now agrees, even the biggest skeptics are now on board agreeing that we're going to see some pretty good increases in home values this year.
Sorry, Lucas, I can just see a question popping up. Bond buying,
yeah.
What's that for the simple people out there? How can you sum that up in simple language?
It's just basically printing more money.
Right. So like we see Scrooge printing money and living in a bath full of money. It's our economy.
It's a bit like that.
Printing
it's
money.
a bit like that. Correct. So $100 billion. Yes.
100 million or 100 billion?
Billion.
Right. Okay. All right. So what does that what does that mean that's happening for people out there in the marketplace? What are we seeing is going on? What can people expect?
What we're actually seeing is a lot of people that were sort of sitting on the fence. Well, let's see what's going to happen. Now everybody sees that there's one thing happening, and that is prices keep on going up, up, up. Interest rates remain historically low. So everybody knows that, everybody's got this fear of missing out. Nobody wants to miss out. Everybody wants to get now into the property, ready to take the big step and buy the first property. And a lot of people are even looking, buy a property, keep it for 3-4 years, watch these increases that we anticipate over the next 3-4 years, and then sell it to make a profit.
Okay. So what does that mean for people? Like, should they be, getting into the market now? Should they be waiting? People always have a long shopping list of what they're looking for. What are you thinking? Like, what's your advice?
Look, now is the time. Now is a perfect storm, as I said. This is a perfect time to get into the property. The prices are still good. Like I said before, the interest rates are historically low. It's a lot easier now with a lot of the red tape gone to get a loan from the banks and find a suitable product that meets your requirements and needs. So now is the time to buy property and take advantage of this, because every year you waste, we're anticipating growth of about 10% per year. So that's a lot of money. We've heard like a lot of the banks, we talked about it last week, have now changed the tunes, and they said, this is what's happening. And this week it was NAB that sort of joined them as well. Their survey showed a 10-year high. They've been doing this survey for 10 years, and this is the highest level they've ever seen it. So they've almost been forced turn around to say from a 5% increase this year, they anticipate at least 7.5% increase.
Wow. Okay. So that's national house prices, 7.5%, 2021.
So we had the lowest point when they were doing the survey was March 2020. Now we've got the highest in the 10-year service history.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. This is talking. NAB is saying 7.5% national house prices increase for 2021. All right. There's a couple of questions here from Linda, which I think you've just covered off, Lucas. So I might just keep reading those as we go on. But Greg, you and I were chatting the other week just about your children. You've got the oldest children here out of the call. Despite looking like the youngest face on this call, you've got children in their mid to late 20s. What was sort of the advice you were talking about, obviously, as they're looking to upgrade a home and buying, selling? What's your sort of advice and your thoughts on that?
James, as people can hear, I'm originally from South Africa, so I'm also talking from personal experience. So that was the first thing. That house pricing here, it's a long-term investment, number one, but the prices almost double every 10 to 15 years. So my advice to my kids straight away were that, they were saying, well, maybe down the track, we're going to move out, we'll sell this place, we'll buy another big place. My advice is, on the basis that you can, is no, don't do that. Allow that property to grow in value, keep it as an investment property, and use the equity in that to buy your next step. You don't need to go and buy a massively big house, but use that then to grow into another property. Keep that, and that's how you start gaining wealth and investment income out of there. So no, try and keep your initial property, rent it out, let it grow, and that's how you gain wealth and stability over time.
Okay. So I've got a question here from Daniel, which I think you've covered off. Was just saying, so should I sell my first property to buy my next property?
No, definitely not. Put the right on that. On the basis that they can sustain that, they'll be getting an income, from a rental income from that first property.
Yeah.
The value of that property is going to increase over time, so that increases his wealth. So at the same time, he's getting a rental, he's getting an increased wealth. So no, go into the next property that you can afford. Don't necessarily buy the 5-bedroom acreage. You keep that initial property, let it gain value, go into the next step, and that's how you build your wealth and your income.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I've seen another question here that's just popped up from Lars, and he's saying, if I have $1 million to invest in property, do I buy one property for $1 million or two at 500,000? I assume he is talking here about investment properties rather than a place to live.
Yeah.
What's the thoughts on that?
Well, if he's talking from just thinking out aloud, if it was purely investment, and he's got to look at what the market is for investment, who's looking to rent properties. If it's something he wants to buy and move in himself, then he buys the big property for $1 million. If he's looking purely as an investment opportunity and spread his risk, then you buy one or two properties that people are looking to rent. So that's a different animal to what he would think he's going to move into. Yeah.
Lucas, any thoughts for Lars on that?
Look, I agree as well. I mean, there's a couple of things. Greg's answer is 100% accurate. So obviously, buying two properties is better than buying one, in my opinion. But that could be the way I was brought up. But look, I believe one of the biggest mistakes that I see many people, I talk with tens of buyers on a weekly basis. And one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of people make is, maybe a couple that's just starting life and they're sort of looking for the big dream home. And they say, we want a big, at least 2-bed, 2-bath or 3-bedroom, and it's just the two of them. And they want to buy in a location, but what they want is a little bit unrealistic for the time now. So they're looking at $1 million+ property when they don't need that. When they get into the property, it's important to get into the property market. Don't miss this opportunity. Buy something that meets your requirements and needs today. And in 5 or 10 years, as your family grows, the property value has also grown. You can leverage that to get into your dream home. Don't just, we've got to learn to walk, crawl, walk before we run. It's very, very simple. It's been around forever. But sometimes we get carried away. We think with the heart too much, and we forget about the little things.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I always believe in two rather than one. As you said, it gives you bite size. So if you do run into financial difficulty, you can easily just sell one property without needing to sell both and free up some equity, as well as it also gives you 2 additional income streams. So, when you've got a vacancy or downtime, maybe doing some renovations on one, you've still got the income coming in from the second property. All right, let's move on. I've got a question here from Ruth talking about the RBA. I think she's asked a question as well about what quantitative easing means, which Lucas, you mentioned before. It's just basically printing money. But she's sort of talking here as well about the RBA's latest meeting. So anyone got any thoughts as to what the key takeaway could be and what's come from that meeting?
Yes, James. Actually, the RBA latest had just in a meeting. So the main takeaway I got from this meeting is because the RBA they set up the historically low interest rate, and they are aware the housing pricing in Australia is going to be significant increase in the next few years. They are aware of that, but they still think we're very, very confident to keep this record low interest for in the next 4 years.
Okay. So sorry, did you say, sorry, I was just reading a question. Did you say the next 3 years? I thought they're talking about.
No, it's 4 years. It's the latest meeting. They said they're very confident to keep this low interest, record low interest in the next 4 years instead of 3 years. So, which means in the next 4 years, and we have this record low interest rate, and which is the big push for the Australian property value.
Yeah. Okay. So that, I mean, like these interest rates, we've talked a lot over, the last few months about how, cheap they are and at record lows that we've never seen before. And really we can expect, now we're hearing from the RBA that that's going to potentially be there, with fair degree of confidence for the next 4 years.
Yes. So the good thing is I can say is with such low interest rate, like Lucas mentioned, it's the perfect timing now to enter into the property market, because we sort of already seeing the Australian market property price is going up, and like Lucas mentioned, it's 10% per year in the next 3 or 4 years. With a record low interest rate, it's sort of you have the lowest cost to buy in the potential highest increase of the property. So the timing you enter into the market, you have the lowest cost to gain the highest, the even big, huge, the profit in the next 3 or 4 years.
Okay. I can see there's another question here that we've got talking about capital gains and regional Australia versus cities. So I'm not sure if the question, I assume, is a tax question. Anyone can answer this. The question is, does capital gains, I believe, tax reduce the further away you own a property from the CBD, or is it just a flat rate regardless of where you own property? Anyone game to answer that question? We don't have our accountant. I am a chartered accountant, so I can answer that question. Capital gains tax is a fixed rate regardless of where the property is located.
That's it. Doesn't matter where you are. Yeah.
So hopefully that answers that question. While we're talking about this, there's been a lot of chat about regional Australia and it's the place to be, and everyone's going to move out of the cities. Has anyone got any thoughts on that? Are cities still important, or where are they going?
Look, most definitely, James, it's not secret due to the pandemic and working from home. We did actually see lots of people move to regional areas, taking advantage of sort of larger properties, slower paced lifestyle, and not having to commute.
Yeah. And so, do you think we're going to see the death of cities, or, what's the thought?
Look, if there was a city before the pandemic, before the lockdown, if the city had something to offer before then, 100% it's got something to offer after that time. So, cities, you got different kind of people diversifying. You got a lot of opportunities there, and we can go into more detail if you like.
So what are some of the benefits that you get?
Yeah, exactly.
From
Simple
cities?
things like fine dining. Not even fine dining. Let's say today you feel like trying Thai cuisine, tomorrow Indian cuisine, the day after French cuisine, the day after whatever you want, Colombian cuisine. Whether it's dining, art, live music, theatre, Everything is at your doorstep at the city.
Okay. A couple of questions here wanting to know about the house price stats. So, Jack, CoreLogic, start of the month, put out their latest numbers for January 2021. What have we seen at a high level?
Yes, so basically, in conclusion, so from the CoreLogic, the January of the 2021, the first month, nationwide, the Australian is continued the housing price, housing value is increased by 0.9%. However, this is the things I need to mention here is nationwide, every single capital city and the regional has recorded the value increased.
Okay. And so, you know, following on from Lucas's sort of thoughts there, we've seen strong house price growth in regional Australia across the board the last few months, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think we've touched on this before. Are we seeing, you know, is that a long-term trend or is this just sort of a short-term? You know, what's typically been, and I don't know if anyone knows, what's typically been, if we look over the last sort of 10, 15 years, what is consistently outperforming? Is it the cities or is it regional, or what have we seen?
The cities, and by a big margin.
Cities.
Yeah.
So basically, the city, I think, from the past the 15 years, the city is 75% increase, and the regional is 15%. I think that's the kind of the ratio we're talking about before.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. So Jack, bring it home for us. What can we expect? What's some sort of forward-looking, you know, forecast that we can expect from CoreLogic's latest stats that everyone can sort of take home with them?
Yes, just that we're watching the figures of the first month of the 2021. We're very, very confident to say in the whole year 2021, the housing value, house market will be gonna be very good, and the price is gonna be increased a lot. And figured out the reason. I think the key factor to driving the housing price increase is supply and demand. Everybody agree to me?
I definitely would. I mean, I think that's the basic economic principles. Oh yes, you've got me.
Yes, because from the data released from the CoreLogic and the listing nationwide has actually dropped a bit. I think it's nationwide. The total listing is dropped about 20%, which means it's not that much the stock on the market. But on the other hand, the buyers very active, and we can say from the valuations of number, mortgage applications, and also the auctions number, which all shows the demand in the market is very strong. So we got the lower supply, but we got a very high demand. For the whole year, we can say the price is going to be going up. That's the trend.
Okay. All right. Let's. I can see it's top of the hour now, so let's just wrap up. A couple of quick closing points I want to make. From me and the rest of the panel, thank you very much for your time. As I said at the start, I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing, so we really, really appreciate you dedicating the last 30 minutes to us. We hope to see you again next week, or the week after, or the week after. We will be here week in, week out, 2:30 every Wednesday. So bye for now, and I will hang around for a few minutes and check if there's any other questions.